Hi everybody, welcome back. This is Joe, and I am going to talk to you about depression. Depression, huh? I get sad. I get depressed. I feel down. Things aren't going right. I have all these things that are happening. I still feel horrible. Other times, things are going okay. Things are going really not bad, not anything more than usual, but I just feel down. I don't even feel like getting up from bed in the morning. I don't feel like going to work. I don't feel like going to school. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. Huh? Is it anxiety? Maybe, but I'm just feeling down. Oh, guess what? Man, my finances, my family, everything is so horrendous. I'm losing everything, or I'm losing that. I'm not getting along with anybody. I feel so alone. I feel so depressed. Wow, there's a lot of things that we're talking about with depression. But you know what? Actually, our life starts in the womb. But did you know that we have pretty much two different components of our brain? Now we have different lobes and different sections of it, but one section of the brain uses certain lobes. The other part of the brain uses other lobes. So actually we have what we call two brains. The two brains actually work together, but they also influence each other either positively or negatively. This brain really starts to develop 3 months before birth, all the way probably until 7 years old, and something changes. Did you know that during the early stages of life, we don't use our frontal lobes, or the other part of the brain? The other part of the brain, or the middle part of the brain, the mid-structure, I'll forget about that, but basically another part of the brain is where most of the memory is stored. And that's why when we get older, until a certain age, we don't remember anything, because it wasn't stored in the frontal lobes, the other part of the brain. So here we go. Now, if it's 3 months before birth, how is that affecting us? Well, obviously the baby doesn't have language, it doesn't know anything, but it has feelings. It has feelings. So if it comes from a family that has a lot of turmoil in the family, those feelings portray itself. And it develops into later stages. And that's how we learn our first feelings. Now, as we get language, we're able to explain what we're feeling. And as we store it into our other part of the brain, we now understand. The first part of the brain deals with, I would say, the AI, or the mechanical part. The mechanical part does things that we don't even control. For example, for the most part, our heart rate, bump, 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 bump. We don't tell our heart to beat. Or breathing. We don't have to even think about breathing. Or someone hits us and we get a scar. Ow, that hurts so bad. Oh, my stomach hurts. Well, the other part of the brain really has nothing to do with it. But so basically, the first brain takes care of our body, the maintenance. The other brain only does one thing. Really only does one thing. You know what that thing is? It thinks. That's all it does. It takes information from the other part of the brain, the outside world, and everything else, and it thinks about it. It thinks. So you have one situation where the biological or the primitive brain takes care of everything, but the thinking part of the brain interprets it. So that leads us to depression. Yes, depression. If a biochemical is not accurate or needs working on, we're going to get that feeling of, oh man, things just don't feel right. I just feel so down. I don't know why. The other part of the brain, the thinking part of the brain, with all these stresses and all these worries that are going on in our life, they say, wow, that's why I'm really depressed. That's why I'm so sad. I can put my finger on it. But here's the thing. If the other part of the brain is working fairly well, but the outside world is horrendous and all these problems, we're able to deal with that. But as we solve problems, our thinking part is pretty much reduces. Over time, it reduces. Then if the biological part, or the second part of the brain, gets really sad and depressed, life is bad until that settles down. But I'll tell you what, when the outside world's heavy and the inside world, from the standpoint of your biological and everything else and your thinking is happening at the same time, life is really bad. That's when you say, I can't deal with things. I don't know. I'm frozen. How do I deal with life? How do I deal with life? But here's the interesting part. Our thinking part wants to put something that attaches itself with something that makes sense. And when it tries to do that, even though if it's the biological nature or the first part of the brain is upset, it's trying to come up with a reason why I'm feeling so sad. And when we can't find a reason, wow, life is really tough. So through the next sessions and next times you come and visit, we're going to work on both areas. The first part, one thing that you can do, in fact, it's better, I think, than most therapists, I think, my personal opinion, that will help you across the board, and it works on basically both parts of the brain. That is exercise. Well, I'm so tired, I'm so fatigued, I don't want to exercise. I don't want to exercise. But your thinking part has to make yourself exercise, because when you exercise, the other part of the brain, the primitive part of the brain, feels that it feels like it's doing something. The thinking part of the brain, by running and exercising or lifting weights, feels like it's doing something. Try it. Exercise to start off with. And in future sessions, I'll think of more things and give you more things to work with. But for starting right now, start an exercise program whether you want to or not. Just think about it. You're laying down doing nothing. How can you be tired? Well, you're mentally fatigued. And that's just as bad as physically fatigued. But the mentally fatigued, push yourself. Okay? Until the next time, take care.